fringes of the UK, especially Wales, the southwest, as well as Northern Ireland. That rain then pushes east during Thursday evening. Eventually it peters out, but what's most notable later Thursday and into Friday, as this low moves closer, is that it will turn windy. Breezy everywhere, but increasingly strong winds affecting northwestern exposed parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Friday then starts off with temperatures, again, mostly in the teens because of the keen breeze keeping things stirred up through the night. And it will be a bright start for many. There'll be one or two rain showers in the southeast, and more especially some heavy and lively showers will affect western Scotland and Northern Ireland through the day. Hail and thunder here, but also increasingly windy towards the northwest with gales for western Scotland on Friday and into Saturday.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to Headliners. My name is Simon Evans. Very shortly, my comedy guests and myself will be going through tomorrow morning's newspapers to see what we have in store. In the meantime, here's Ray with the news headlines.
Thanks, Simon. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister is set to announce a string of reforms to help people cut their household expenditure. Speaking in Lancashire tomorrow, Boris Johnson will promise to outline measures designed to cut the cost of transport, food, energy and childcare. He'll also reveal plans to extend the right to buy scheme to housing association tenants. It comes after the Prime Minister won a vote of confidence. However, 41% of his own party voted against him. The driver of a car which drove into a crowd of people in Berlin may have been mentally ill. That's according to the German capital's Interior Affairs Minister. She also says posters relating to Turkey were found in his vehicle. 14 students were injured and their teacher was killed during the incident. 6 people are believed to be in a life-threatening condition. The 29-year-old German-Armenian driver was detained by members of the public. More rail workers have agreed to walk out on the same day as industrial action is carried out by the RMT. Members of the Unite Union, who work for Transport for London and the London Underground, will strike on the 21st of June. The RMT also plans to walk out on that date, along with the 23rd and 25th of this month. That's the same weekend as the Glastonbury Festival. They say it will be the biggest strike on the railways since 1989. The Prime Minister has labelled the action reckless and unwanted. The Home Office says it's still planning to fly dozens of asylum seekers to Rwanda, despite campaigners launching High Court action to block the move. The Public and Commercial Services Union, Care for Calais and Detention Action say lawyers have sought a judicial review of the scheme. They're calling the Home Office policy unlawful. The first flight, carrying around 130 migrants, is due to leave next Tuesday. 2 British fighters have appeared in a Russian court to face charges of being mercenaries for Ukrainian forces. 28-year-old Aidan Aslin and 48-year-old Sean Pinner sat alongside a Moroccan fighter, Brahim Sourdan. If convicted, they face lengthy prison sentences and possibly even a death sentence. Mr Aslin was seen urging Boris Johnson to convince President Zelensky to exchange them for a Russian soldier captured during the conflict in Ukraine. And police are hunting a man who absconded from a mental health facility. 48-year-old James Manley was last seen in Victoria Park in East London after 11 a.m. this morning. He was convicted of a robbery 2 years ago and detained under the Mental Health Act. Police are advising the public not to approach him and, if they do see him, to call 999 immediately. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now let's get back to those headliners.
Hello. Welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. Joining me tonight, 2 of the most stylish comedians on the circuit, Diane Spencer, Nick Dixon. Fantastic. You are modelling those specs with a great deal of style and panache, both of you. We should point out that this is inspired by the fact that Nick actually walked into the studio genuinely wearing those without any sense of irony or...
I started the trend. What is it? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
First they laugh at you, then you cry, then you go home and never come in looking like that again. You look like Warren Beatty in the You're So Vain song, definitely, if that was about him. It's never been proven. Maybe it was you.
It's a fabulous look, though.
It is.
It looks very sort of... You said he looked like he just came off a yacht.
Listen, you always look like you're ready to go onto a yacht anyway. Nick has just stepped up, frankly, and he's just realised he's
one foot on the yacht.
Let us take a look at tomorrow's front pages, or if you're watching this tomorrow morning, today's front pages. We start with the Daily Mail. Lawyers set to ground first Rwanda flight. So the long-anticipated clash between the government and lefty lawyers is looking sound. Forced out Tory czar, city supermum, who said Boris was in wrong job. I think Lynn Truss demanded her head. Thursday's Guardian now, and a story that will be welcomed by... I'm sorry, it's the Telegraph first. I do apologise. Price of filling up average car hits £100. Then we have the Independent, which is revealed Ukraine forces outgunned up to 40-1. And there's a photograph there of a terribly sad accident in which a teacher has been killed as a car hits a crowd in Berlin. I am not clear whether or not that is being regarded as a terrorist outrage or something of that sort. The Guardian has fuel cost surge and dire economic forecast shatter PM's hopes of reset. I can't imagine the PM was oblivious to the likelihood of those things being in his immediate future. And there's an obituary lined up for Paula Rigo, who is an artist who has passed away, celebrated for the passion and power of her work. The next one is the Mirror, and they have a petrol crisis story, £100 to fill family car. There is always that slight suspicion that they're overgeneralising, but never mind, that's the average family car, and it is now going to cost £100 to fill that up. There's also a suggestion that dinosaurs are back as well. Whether these two things are related, who knows? The Times has Johnson to let benefit claimants buy homes. Plan could put $3 million on housing ladder. Can't help remembering that it was Bill Clinton's demands that the poor be able to access mortgages that triggered the world financial crisis about 15 years ago. And Sir David Attenborough, 96, was made a Knight Grand Cross of the Order of St Michael and St George at Windsor. That's him collecting both his stars at the same time, which is obviously makes a lot of sense at that age. And finally, the Daily Star. I want my mummy. Anxious archaeology students warned they might see old bodies. More trigger warning stories from the Star. We love all that at GB News. So those are our headlines. Let's have a dig into the papers. So, Nick, this is the story which I wrongly queued up thinking it was the headlines, but this is the story that will please absolutely nobody from The Guardian.
Yeah, well, I thought it might be the Berlin story, actually, but it's price of UK petrol makes biggest daily jump in 17 years. So the average price is at 180.73p, with the cost of filling a family car threatening to exceed £100 for the first time, up an astonishing 2.23p compared to the previous day. Not much fun. Now, people are blaming increased demand across the world and the squeeze on capacity at refineries. But there's a spat between the RAC and the AA. It's all kicking off because
this is the bit I like, actually. Yeah,
yes, this is the meat of it.
It's unusual, isn't it? A bit of internecine squabbling.
Right.
It's going to become a West End music.
When you're a rack all the way. Go on.
Good point. When you're... Yeah, so it's... I almost started off there, but no. The sunglasses are enough. I'll phase in the singing gradually. So AA is saying it's reckless speculation that has done this, whereas the RAC is saying it's wholesale costs. So it's all kicking off. Whereas you and I know, Simon, of course, it's the WEF and the elites.
It's the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset. Yeah.
Now, I did assume that at some point this was going to come in very quickly with you two gentlemen.
OK.
And I have joined the dots, which I think you'll appreciate.
Go ahead.
You know, we're going to have the rail strikes.
Yeah.
You can't fly anywhere because the planes are all landed. And now the petrol's so high that we can't drive anywhere. Are we entering a lockdown, but with no reason behind
By stealth,
it?
yeah. Climate lockdown.
Could be.
Yeah, and there's meat prices we're going to talk about as well. They don't want you to eat meat.
Yeah.
So it's all happening.
I don't think you can conflate too many of these things, but certainly it seems to be an anti-transport agenda.
You haven't seen my Twitter site.
You can, of course, but it will start to collapse. I do think it's interesting just how much shock and outrage there's being expressed. I mean, it is obviously expensive, but this is what a lot of people genuinely wanted to happen in order to enable us to switch to the green. Sustainable energy. It was never going to be affordable. That was never on the cards, was it?
Some people want it. The Boris and the net zero freaks want it, but actually people don't want it when they actually see what it is. But people don't notice. People are busy. They don't notice until it hits them at the pump.
It is interesting. Almost none of them are really talking about Russian oil or any of that.
That's mentioned.
Getting mentioned. I wonder whether is it that they are attempting to downplay that so that people don't lose faith and confidence and determination and commitment to the long-term sanctions. Well, because they start to think, oh, my God, it's hurting me in the pocket now. I'm not sure about that.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's more of a sort of cynical... They're saying that this oil has fallen from peaks since the start of the war. And the claim is it's these other factors, but I know what you mean. That if it was that factor, would they publicise it?
Well, listen, I'm laughing. I recently exchanged cars. My old car was doing about 35 to the gallon, and I've got one that does about 50 now. So it's going to have to go up quite a lot in order to capture my interest again. Frankly, I'm still loving it.
I'm absolutely distraught by this. For the first time, my tiny little car actually took £100 worth. I went to 99, and you can't go beyond
without burping.
Without burping.
Amazing.
I sold my car because getting a parking spot in my building was so expensive. So I'm actually the model citizen the WEF want against my will.
You are. You're living in the pod. You are eating the bug. Thursday's Telegraph now. The polling company YouGov has been accused of engaging in some shenanigans, Diane, although historical shenanigans, I think. Is that
yes. So YouGov are accused of pulling a poll which favoured Jeremy Corbyn following pressure from Nadhim Zahawi, who is the Education Secretary.
And hired thug, by the sound of it.
And hired thug. Now, the Telegraph is kind of posing this mystery question to us because it gives us all the evidence. And it's coming from Chris Curtis, who is a former YouGov employee, who is now head of political polling at Opinium.
Yeah.
They've got very flash names.
Yes.
Like Opinium and Populous. And I would invent one. I'd call mine Thinky Winky.
Nice.
I like it.
Polestar, would they have that?
Polestar,
Pole dancer. Yeah, that would be good for you.
No. I'm
Everyday
really not that
sexism.
coordinated, but
thank
you for thinking I am.
Yeah.
I don't have the room in my lounge. So
very good for your upper body strength. That's what I've heard.
What you should try it. You could do a bit of boylesque. So essentially, they're saying you've got Chris Curtis on one side.
Opinium chief now. He's got a rival company, and so he's bad-mouthing his former employers. Is that the case?
Yes.
So you could read it that way. OK, but never mind. Let's put that to one side. So he suggests that Jeremy Corbyn... I think the issue at stake was that Corbyn won one of the TV debates. Is that right?
Yes.
But the next day, YouGov polled people and found that that was the case, and they just shelved it rather than think that that would give him some momentum.
Yes, as if, you know, if they had possibly released it, then, oh, we would have Jeremy Corbyn and he would have been the Prime Minister and they would have got rid of Theresa May and we wouldn't have Boris. I think this is why this is coming up. There's a lot of evidence from sort of both sides. There's an interesting character, Sir Linton Crosby, who is an Australian sort of political manipulator, and he's sort of saying, oh, I put Populace out of business last time. I'm going to put you out of business this time.
He's the dead cat chap, isn't he, Linton Crosby? Dead cat. Chuck a dead cat on the... When things get hot, you chuck a dead cat on the table, and not literally a dead cat, but it's his...
The Trump
that's the name of his strategy.
Diversion.
Yeah, diversion.
Right.
I remember this debate. I think it was the same one. It's the one in which Jeremy Corbyn was wearing a strange pair of spectacles. I think one of the lenses was missing or something, and there was a suspicion that... I can't remember what it was, but there was something not quite right about his glasses and about what they were correcting for. It wasn't just normal short-sightedness.
Oh, really?
I
forgot that. I know he got points just for showing up when Theresa May was AWOL. But can I just say, for legal reasons, YouGov are denying this allegation.
Yes.
I think we should get in there so I don't get sued again.
No, of course.
But
it's only an allegation.
But YouGov... I remember YouGov mainly from the COVID lockdown era when many convenient polls kept popping up on Twitter that were exactly what the government wanted to do.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying for a second they were fake polls, Simon, although you can ask questions in a certain way, can't you? Like, would you like more lockdowns or do you want your brand to die?
Yeah.
You
know, Peter Hitchens has, I think, the best concise summary of the... Opinion polls are there to form public opinion, not to tell you what public opinion is.
Because once you see it, you go, oh, everyone thinks that. Exactly. And I would add, though, that it was very interesting to see this story in The Guardian. It said that Zahawi had called up this guy, Stephen Shakespeare, YouGov's chief executive, and just said, hey, you can't publish this thing. Whereas in The Telegraph, it's a joke between mates, because which The Guardian omitted. So Zahawi said it was a joke between two good friends. He's one of my closest friends. At no point since leaving YouGov have I had any influence on him. Because Zahawi did co-found YouGov. So I do find it actually fairly likely that it probably was a joke.
That's credible. I think so. We'll have to... The mystery continues, but it doesn't feel like it's a smoking gun at this point. Thursday's Mail now. This Islamic movie story is gathering pace, it seems, Nick. This is the Lady of... No, not the Lady of Shalott. What's it called?
Lady of Heaven.
Lady of Heaven, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the Showcase becomes latest chain to pull the so-called blasphemous historic film. So Cineworld pulled it famously. Now you'll have seen the footage, probably the manager being harassed, and he pulled the movie. Showcase have followed suit. And it is complicated because there's this... It's already been covered on this show, so I'm going to try not to repeat stuff, but there's the Sunni versus Shia element, which is causing a lot of the issues. But then, of course, there's also the free speech versus should we pull movies for blasphemy element, which obviously I think
it does. I mean, there are elements of the story, putting aside the free speech as a matter of principle, there are elements of the story that suggest it has been created in order to be divisive, to be provocative. Even in... Is it Sunni... It's created it in Iran, which is Sunni. They've still refused to show it because even they believe it.
Created by Shias.
Shia,
it's nonetheless banned in a Shia majority Iran. Whereas, so even some of the Shias don't like it. But the Sunnis are saying it's basically this. The Prophet Fatima is depicted in CGI, which I'm not sure people like. And then Aisha is shown in a negative light. That's the sectarian issue. Then there's obviously free expression. We can't. I've got an even more controversial take, which I thought I'd throw out there. Which, just for fun, if you were a Muslim on the more extreme side and you saw... obviously, it's appalling to harass cinema managers and teachers and so on. That's completely my stance. It's completely appalling. But if you were, and you'd seen the way Christianity was sort of declined in this country... You might think that I have to do this to sort of stop it going.
On the other hand, the point at which, the last hurrah of Christianity was protesting against Stuart Lee's Jerry Springer musical, wasn't it? Right. Various other things. That was already over by then. The point at which Malcolm Muggeridge was attacking Life of Brian on a Sunday morning debate show. At that point, it was gone, wasn't it, really?
What I find interesting is that some people who actually saw it gave it mixed reviews. Some people said it was all right.
Long and
some
boring.
Some people said it was long and boring and low budget. And what they've essentially done is there is a chance that if you just let it play, it might just happen and go away. But now they've brought so much attention to it, way more people are going to go see it.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know.
My point was just, obviously, I'm against this behaviour, but you start off with getting rid of blasphemy laws like we did in the past, then you end up with Justin Welby, do you know what I mean, further down the line, and it's all over.
Absolutely. Christianity bending over backwards.
Yeah.
That will be a movie in due course, no doubt. Thursday's Times has a story on a novel strategy to eliminate the scourge of smoking, Diane. It actually says the scourge of smoking Diane there, but I think there should be a comma.
No, definitely a comma is missing.
Yeah.
So according to the Times, the smoking age should go up every year to deter young people. And apparently this is a review ordered by Sajid Javid. And it's a New Zealand model. Now, the way that it sounds to my mind is that every year it goes up by 1 year.
Essentially, if you're too young to smoke, you will always be too young to smoke for all your life.
Yes, you'll always be like 1 year behind.
And your slightly older mates will be like, you can't smoke.
It's sort of like being like a racehorse. It's sort of always kept a little bit in front of you.
Yeah.
But you'll have to sort of go into newsagents. I'm 46. No, I know you're 45.
There's got to come a point, hasn't there, which I've seen a lot of people discussing going, OK, if you're 16, you're allowed to join the army and give your life for your country, but you're not allowed to buy tobacco. That's ridiculous. Well, that is one debate. But I think it's more like when you get to 27 or something. I mean, nobody's, let alone 35, who's going to ever show their age ID after a certain point? You just refuse to do that, wouldn't you? Which I guess is what they want, but...
Well, yeah, definitely. They want you to do that. And the irony is also that smoking severely ages your skin.
Yes.
So if you can never quite reach it, you'll always look young.
If you can just get the fags, though, for when you're 16,
then
you'll be able to look 80. By the time you're 17, you can get ahead of the pack. The danger is, obviously, with these things, is that tobacco is available freely on the continent. It's quite easy to smuggle over. There's been a fairly sort of profitable business doing that. If they make tobacco too hard to get, it's like when they put the tax up on vodka too much in Russia, sales drop until it gets to a certain point, and then people just start making vodka in the bath, and they become insane and blind. You want to avoid that if you possibly can.
The backstreet tobacco scene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you remember, you've seen them in plastic holdalls in pubs and so on, being walked. If you go in Wetherspoons a few years ago, there was always a fellow walking around flogging 200, cartons.
I don't go in pubs, so it's wrong demographic. Ask me about CrossFit. I'm a fascist on this one issue. I totally admit. I'm known for my sort of libertarian stances, but this one, I hate smoking so much. I actually just would ban it, and my base would hate me. I have a base, but they would hate me. But I just
replace the base,
because even in my building, my neighbour is very nice, but the smoke comes up, it gets in your house no matter what you do.
It is filthy.
It's horrendous, and the only problem is I don't want to be on the same page as Jacinda Ardern in any way, so I'm conflicted.
Well, you are, but I think it's probably just it's a human flaw, Nick. We've been waiting for one to open up and do an impeccable carapace. I think it's quite interesting. I'm just going to drop this in. Roy Castle, you remember, who died, I think it was about 20, 25 years ago, and it was his death which he attributed to second-hand smoke.
In the jazz club.
Which proved the tipping point, and the legislation came in shortly afterwards. And I had a friend who was in the pro-tobacco lobbying group, Forest, at that time, and he said when Roy Castle died, that was the end of it for us. We knew we'd lost, which I find quite heartwarming, because although it was obviously awful that Roy's life was cut short, he was the presenter of Record Breakers, one of my favourite shows growing up, all about the Guinness Book of Records. And his death is unquestionably, surely, a world record-breaking sacrifice, probably the single most important civilian death in the history of health legislation.
Wow, yes.
That one man dying has saved thousands, perhaps tens, hundreds of thousands of lives.
Way of looking at it, I thought about him as well, researching his story, I forgot to say, because I remember that famous picture with the cigarette stubbed out on his head, but I thought of it because, as comedians, it would have been horrible to do clubs if people could smoke in them, so I am grateful for that.
I did it for a few years. It was awful. If you went in with a sore throat, you came out feeling like death. The times again, and seemingly the last remaining relics of the pandemic are lifting. This is a few places that still require masks, Nick.
Finally, some good news. Masks are no longer compulsory in GP surgeries and hospitals. Of the 3 times I ever wore a mask, 2 of them were in a GP, because it feels a bit churlish when you're about
in a surgery?
Rather
than
the health
in a
centre.
GP.
Yes, a good point. But it feels a bit churlish when you're about to ask someone to look at your privates to say, I'm not going to wear the mask, bro. So that's the 2 times that... 2 of the times that it's... Sorry, Dan, your face went weird there. But the point is... they're going to get rid of them, except some GPs are apparently going to keep them, so they'll just be kept forever, so nothing we can do about that. But mainly they've gone, and I have to say, it's amazing to me at this point, we still see people in the supermarket and even outside wearing masks. I sort of give Asian people a pass because of the whole SARS thing, and it's become a cultural thing. Anyone else, I'm like, why are you wearing the mask, bro? Also...
I just don't have the nose for it. I'm sorry, but I don't.
Well, my nose is too nice to cover up, but people have said. But I lost friends over the mask debate, and they're not coming back, even though the masks are gone, but those scars remain, sadly.
Well, there's a couple of issues, though, because I was listening to a podcast which was all about how do pandemics end, and pandemics end in 2 ways, social way and a sciencey way. The social social way is when we all go, we've had enough, we've decided the pandemic has ended, we'll just acceptably get on with it. The sciencey way is where they actually say, OK, this is now no longer a risk to us, it now can no longer
it's denatured
properly
enough.
come back. But they're saying, the scientists are saying that they're actually surprised that people have stopped wearing the masks because they're saying that we're still at risk of having some mass variant.
I think the problem is the context as well. And I still remain agnostic as to when and where masks work. But, for instance, I went to the dentist recently. When you walk in, it's like a Victorian house, the dentist. You walk in through the front door, they give you a mask, you sign a thing, you know, to say you've arrived. It's about 5 steps into the surgery and you have to take the mask off again because they're actually investigating your teeth. I mean, obviously, you know what I mean? It's like one of those double yellow lines that's about 4 yards long, you know, that you wouldn't be able to park a car on if you wanted to.
I think you're going to the wrong dentist. I went to the dentist, nothing came up. Basically, the more I've noticed in private healthcare in general, not much talk of masks.
I'm very much NHS.
You're very much NHS.
Don't worry about that.
No, you see,
you look in my mouth, I've got tarmac in most of the whole thing.
I don't. There's only one dentist I trust, but no, hardly anyone's wearing masks. I know what you mean. People are sick of it. That's what's happened.
That's it for part 1. Sorry, Diane. We'll not be allowed to have any comeback on that. Coming up, we'll be discussing the transgender cyclist Emily Bridges' comments on Boris Johnson, the head of the Japanese Olympics, comments on women, and the UK's monkeypox patient zero, comments about track and trace. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
we're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping it.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping it.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans, Diane Spencer and Nick Dixon. So Thursday's Daily Mail now, the transgender cyclist Emily Bridges has some choice words for Boris Johnson, Diane.
Yes, so Emily Bridges says that she has received threats of violence after the PM made comments about trans rights in sports. So let's just hold your horses there. Hold your horses. It's wonderful that she's living up to the female stereotype of whining. Thanks.
Wow.
So Boris Johnson said that biological males shouldn't compete in women's sports, right?
Yeah.
And then he also said, and I can't believe I'm sticking up for Boris Johnson, but I am, because he also said that it doesn't mean he's not immensely sympathetic to people who want to change gender and that they need a lot of love and support, and you can't just brush it away with just a little bit of legislation. And that is a very nuanced and important approach to take.
Yep.
And it is totally appropriate to say that, and it's not totally appropriate to make threats to somebody.
No. But I suppose what's the question is, well, we can obviously, I think, both agree on that, and I personally think Johnson handled that issue much better than Starmer and all the rest of them in the Labour Party.
Yes.
Who have absolutely confused people, and I think made Labour Party look, borderline unelectable until they get their heads around the truth of that. But the question is Emily Bridges right to essentially, really quite blatantly blame Boris Johnson for arousing the ire of these online sort of hate campaigns that she claims to have been subjected to? And I am remaining sceptical about that because I'll be honest with you, I am online quite a lot and I see an overwhelming majority of the hatred and vitriol expressed by the trans rights activists towards the gender critical community. It's all one-way traffic as far as I can see, and then it's very much the cry bully stance.
Yeah,
go on.
Oh, they're even attacking Owen Jones now. Yeah, well, I don't believe the claims, because there was the claims that Boris's letterbox comments caused all this violence, which I didn't particularly believe that either. But I definitely don't believe this, because Boris made these comments a while ago. I remember that interview. Yeah. What this came from was that picture on Twitter on the podium of the two biological men winning and then the woman with the baby and on the third spot. Yeah, that's what this came from, it seems to me. And it's clever to attach it to Boris because he's a popular hate figure at the moment, saying, oh, Boris has caused this. I don't believe that for a second. It's also worth noting that Emily Bridges appeared in a men's race in February, which is one reason they're getting so much stick. But look, Sharon Davis did a poll the other day: should biological males be allowed to compete against biological females in sport? It's nearly 60,000 votes. 97% said no. So that's just popular sentiment.
It's a very good example of what you were saying earlier about how polling can be used to distort public opinion. There were a lot of polls that came out at a certain point in which the general public seemed to sort of support trans rights, and then when it emerged how the questions had been phrased, you would go, well, yes, they're supporting their right to exist, but you're saying, are the biological males, should they be allowed to compete in women's sports? Suddenly, public opinion was considerably more in favour of keeping them segregated. I think we're going to move to a point at some point where what you might now call men's sports is just open. Anyone can compete if they want to, and then there is a protected category for biological females. That's what I would imagine we'll end up with at some point.
Yes, well, when you actually look at all the rules when it comes to the different athletes, you'll find that a lot of the rules say, right, if you are a male to female, you need to have this level of testosterone, you need to have been doing this for this many things, this. But if you have a biological female entering into the men's category, it literally just says you need to say that you're male and you are staying as male, because there has been research. And this is something Emily Bridges has said. Emily Bridges claims that, all of the research that's been done previously has not been done on athletes. I don't have any competitive biological advantage. Absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. In the British Journal of Sports Medicine, Dr. Timothy Roberts brought out something in December 2020, and that is just one thing I'm citing. There's so many different things out there that prove that you do have an advantage if you've gone through male puberty.
Yeah, and it's never going to be acceptable. Any amount of drugs taken to lower testosterone is not going to be acceptable.
Apparently Bridges was in a tournament in February 2020, won gold in the points race and bronze in the team relay, so...
Well, this one will run and run, as they say. Thursday's Times once more, and the Japanese Olympic chief is standing his ground regarding his, scare quotes, sexist comments about women. I suspect you may have some sympathy with his position, Nick.
How dare you? Yoshimo Mori doubles down on sexist Olympic comments. So this is the former PM of Japan, and he said that...
This has nothing to do with female athletes not being good or anything, is it?
No, it's to do with female representation on sports governing bodies. Right. And he said there'd be a bit of a problem because a board meeting with plenty of women will drag on. And this is what's funny is he's the Lib Dem party in Japan, slightly different culture. Right. So that's where the Liberals are at in Japan. He said, women are competitive. When one raises a hand and speaks, all the others think they should speak too. Everyone ends up saying something, which apparently got a laugh. And then he said that if they were going to be admitted to these meetings, then their time should be rationed. Otherwise, they'll never stop. Lucky that I'm covering the story, not Diana. We'd be here all day. And he says now he was hounded. He apologised at the time, but it was a bit of a fake apology because now he's saying what he actually thinks, which is, I got scolded for telling the truth. The world is going crazy because politicians don't tell the true story. Who can really deny that last comment?
Why are you booing me? I'm right.
Right. Well, they don't tell the truth. And also, who can deny, Simon, his lived experience that women just do talk a lot, if that's his lived experience?
What do you think, Diane? Do you want to defend women on this one?
I'm sorry, you two were talking for so long, I just zoned out. What are we on now?
Male tears. I would say, I don't think it's not my experience at this, in my experience, but then I don't sit in committees, but I would definitely say this. If a woman had made some absurd generalisation about what the effect of all male committees was, you know, that there was a lot of willy-waving or confrontation and they never could agree with anything because their egos were clashing, nobody would say that was absurdly sexist.
Right.
People go, well, she's got a point.
Let's say you go, girl.
Yeah.
No, this is ridiculous.
OK, go
This
on.
is actually ridiculous because
I've
this
baited
person
it.
is noticing when women talk.
Yeah.
And he's timing when women talk. He doesn't want to listen to women, so he's noticing it.
Right.
And when the men talk, he's not even...
Yeah, he's going...
Yeah.
He's like that. Japan is a more patriarchal culture, of course.
Yeah, well, it's got all sorts of regressive aspects to it, to be honest. I could not think of a more perfect embodiment of this next particular article than you, Diane. This one is from The Times again.
Thank you. So look on the bright side. Optimistic women may live longer, which is wondrous. So they did this research. It was the Journal of the American Geriatric Society. It included a whopping 159,000 women.
Yeah.
And they were enrolled when they were between 50 and 79 years old, and they followed them for 26 years.
Right.
And they discovered that, on average, the optimistic women lived longer. But I don't know whether that's just because they're going, well, everybody else is dead. I'm having a great time.
Well, were they asking them on a regular basis? Can we establish that? Were they kind of like getting like, how optimistic are you feeling today, and how about now and now and now? Or was this like at the beginning of the like they do a test at the beginning of the entire experiment and then come back every 10 years and see if you're still alive?
I think for the answer to that in-depth question, you will need to actually read the Journal of the American Geriatric Society.
But I used to read, I remember a few years ago there was a big movement in popular psychology of sort of happiness, you know, the psychology of happiness, and it was emphasised again and again that this finding is nothing new. I remember they did a study at a convent, and even among the nuns, who you would think would be quite a sort of emotionally sort of uniform kind of body of women, there were some nuns that were just really pleased to be there. I'm just happy to be here. There were other nuns that thought things could be organised a bit better, and the second batch died early, and the ones that were just happy to be there lived on and on and on, you know.
Yeah, well, why is it women? Isn't it surely the case that everyone who's optimistic is meant to live longer? Though I'm a bit sceptical because it says lifestyle factors such as smoking, drinking, diet and exercise accounted for about 24% of the link between optimism and lifespan. So are they optimistic because they're not doing those things, or vice versa? See what I mean?
My strong suspicion is that optimism, like a lot of things in human nature, is baked in to a large extent. You're not able to increase it just by having some sort of silly journal or something.
But there are ways that you can improve your mood.
Yes.
There are actual physical ways you can improve your mood. Like if you look
Steady
up...
on now. We've got that one
No,
coming
not in
up
that
later.
way.
Okay.
Like if you look up, you improve your mood. If you take yourself outside and you sort of you look at, you get enough daylight. You can
walking in woods is good. You get a bit of extra oxygen. One thing I noticed in that one, there was one of the women who was studied, and she had lived. I think it was in this story. It might be a later one. She'd lived to be 100, I think.
Later.
Is it later, that one?
Yeah.
OK, we'll come back to that later.
I think so. Well,
they'll fit.
I will. Yeah, I do agree with you.
There was one thing that she said which struck me, which was that her only regret was that her husband had died when she was still quite young. Well, I think that's the secret of women living to an old age. In my family, just like my own personal observation, anecdotal, but all the women I know whose husbands who were widowed quite early, and this did happen quite a bit in the old days, when in the days of smoking and warfare, they would often live on into their 80s and 90s with a very cheerful demeanour, whereas those who were married after about 70 drag each other down. I'm just saying, I think it's a stressful business having a husband after a certain period of time. That's it for part 2. Coming up shortly, we have cow burps, potholes and Scottish sex robots, or as Nick calls it, a standard Saturday night. I'll see you in 2 minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners. It's our final third with me, Simon Evans, Diane Spencer and Nick Dixon. So Thursday's Guardian, and not only are vegans bad at making tasty food, they're also bad at making tasteful adverts, Nick.
Yep, UK Watchdog bans vegan TV ad for showing violence towards animals, which we'll get onto in a minute. But ASA received 63 complaints over this advert, which is the same number of vegans in the country. We saw the other day in a poll there's actually only 4% of people are vegans in the country, not 20 as people thought, but they're very good at getting publicity. So I watched this advert so you don't have to. It's kind of a middle-class family sitting around saying how virtuous they are about things, while smash cuts of horrific suffering against animals come in a kind of Gaspar Noé or Lars von Trier kind of horrific dark movie where... And typical vegan subtlety. And of course, the irony is, in sharing this problem about violence towards animals, they've got banned for depicting violence towards animals. Almost, they did it too well, and actually it's bizarrely proved their point.
But it's interesting, isn't it? I watched it as well, it's on YouTube if anyone wants to see it. A couple of things struck me. Firstly, the way the script is organised, the suggestion is that these three quite aspirational young middle-class, well-off people are lamenting things like bullfighting in other countries, the cruelty that other cultures and other peoples mete out to their animals, the fact that the English essentially are a nation of animal lovers and other countries are not as bright.
No pun intended on meat out, presumably.
Yes, very good. And also, I just thought it was lovely to see the rarity now, an advert in which all three main parts were played by white Caucasian actors. So rare not to see a mixed race coming. These absolutely horrific, oblivious, brutal people. Hypocrites. But they were at least all white.
Yes.
No, seriously though, it is quite a powerful. I don't know if I'd have it banned. I don't know if I would late at night or something. Well, maybe not when kids could see it.
Some of the argument, for banning it was just that you couldn't choose. People saying it's only what you'd see at a butcher. The argument was, well, you choose to go there. You don't choose to watch these horrors on your screen.
It's not all what you'd see at a butcher either. I mean, it's it's
worse.
Farming. Yeah,
a pretty bad butcher.
Yeah, that's
or a very brave butcher.
Right.
Well, no, when you go on holiday sometimes and you go into like the souk or something and you get the butchers there, they'll display they'll put the head of the animal above all the meat cuts, so you can see exactly. This is Bertie, and this is what he's
quite proud of his cutlets. Yeah, absolutely right. Thursday's Telegraph next. Just when you thought tax wasn't oppressively exhaustive already, they are now taxing cow burps, Diane. This is another thing from New Zealand, I think.
Yeah, so this is from New Zealand. Cow and sheep burps to be taxed by New Zealand in world first. Isn't that exciting? So New Zealand is home to 5 million people, 10 million cattle and 26 million sheep.
Right.
And they, up until now...
I bet the sheep overestimate the number of humans there are.
Oh, they do. There's some sheep and they go, I've heard that humans exist, but I've never seen one. They basically, the government have decided that they're going to now tax methane emissions.
Right.
and they're going to...
Tax the farmers, presumably, rather than the sheep.
But the thing is that, like, they're saying that it goes on the methane that the animals produce. Now, I don't know about you, but one sheep to the next is going to have a different ratio of burping and farting, right? So they're going to have to take your standard sheep and sort of measure how much methane it produces. But some sheep are going to have dietary problems. Like, it's all a bit wonky.
Essentially, they are saying, and I would imagine cattle are much more productive of methane than sheep, but they are essentially saying, we're just going to tax your cattle. There's no realistic way in which they're going to measure the amount of methane, are they?
They're not going to have somebody turn up with a jar, like, waiting by a cow's backside.
Or does it depend on what you feed them, though? Maybe there is a certain kind of feedlot that will...
That's what I'm saying. There might be some sheep that have, like, intestinal problems, like, oh, no gluten, thank you. And then that sheep, if you feed it wheat...
See, we were led to believe when I was a child, I was virtually made to feel ashamed of my own paltry little single-chambered stomach. The cows with their 4 chambers and their ability to regurgitate the cud, which it felt like the rotary Wankel engine or something. You know, it was a much more advanced system.
You were made to feel ashamed of your single stomach?
Yeah, whereas wolves have the very fast stomach. They can Well, I like they're called agricultural emissions. I can't tell if that's a euphemism or what they're actually called. It's right on the line. And I just want to say, of course it's New Zealand, of course it's Jacinda, at least the higher meat prices. How convenient, again, WEF.
I love agricultural emissions, though. You're right. It's like somebody had a step-toe and stuff. Get out of there, you dirty little man. Your agricultural emissions. On to the metro, the scourge of suspensions up and down the land. This is potholes, Nick.
Yes, drivers are so angry about these potholes, they've been given a swear jar. Nearly 700 people in the village of Wrenbury near Nantwich in Cheshire have signed a petition calling on the council to repair the heavily damaged station road. I sound like Alan Partridge on North Norfolk Radio. It sounds ruddy hard.
We've got a picture of this.
Oh, yeah, well, I texted it to our producer, and he wanted the source. The source was Twitter. I thought it'd be better with the picture, because otherwise it's a fairly dry story. But there it is, the swear box in aid of Cheshire.
I was saying, though, this is all very close to the story that inspired John Lennon to write Day in the Life. I read the news today, a boy, 4,000 holes in Blackburn, Lancashire. That was about potholes.
Really?
Then someone had to count them all, and now they know how many holes it takes to fill the Albert Hall. He had seen it in a news story, a bit like a rainforest the size of Wales. You know, it had been the total number of potholes in Blackburn, Lancashire would have filled the Albert Hall.
What I love about this is very typical British village honesty box. And I love an honesty box.
I agree.
You should buy your eggs from an honesty box, and you have a swear box. You must be honest, and there'll be people who live in that village who'll go, right, that is it. Walk down that street and you go put that money in that swear box.
I remember I had I went into a church once, and we were hiking and camping, and we were just like wandering through a village. They had a little sort of box of groceries. It was like a food bank, but a tiny one, just in the porch of the church. And they had a tube of toothpaste, which I desperately needed. And so I left money in there for the toothpaste. I'd bought it. But my mate was outraged because it had been left as charity and it wasn't like supposed to be purchased. And it still gnaws at me whether did I do something really evil that day? Is that like an honesty box or not? I paid absolutely the going rate for the toothpaste.
No, you did perfect. You did exactly what you should have done.
And then a poor person could come in and just take the money now, and buy some cigarettes with it.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think you can sleep easy on it.
OK, it's always gnawed at me there. Thursday's Guardian next. A 100-year-old woman. This is one I trailed earlier with the benefits of an early spinsterhood, widowhood rather. An old woman has had her driving licence renewed at the age of 100. Presumably this won't actually reduce the standard of Italian driving.
Yes, I mean, I don't know if you've ever driven around in Italy. I mean, I was driven around in Rome once. It was terrifying. So a 100-year-old Italian woman has her driving licence renewed. And although this is news now, is this not something that will cease to be news in possibly 10 years' time?
You never know.
Are we not all living longer?
Yeah.
And are we not all going to sort of maintain our faculties? I think this woman would have clearly been an optimist because she's clearly been living for so long. Which is wondrous.
And she's done well because she lost her husband at an early age, which she regards as a tragedy, but it's definitely helped her.
I'm distraught at how much you're plying this.
The irony is, in 70 years' time, she'll be able to renew her driving licence at 100. She won't be allowed to buy cigarettes.
Can I just say as well, though, it's not that weird. My granddad drove till 93 badly, it has to be said, but he was always
pulled over. Do you know what speed you were doing?
He was always a bad driver, so it wasn't the age. He just tailgated.
Yeah, my dad as that to give it up now. They've just lost it. My dad's 92, can no longer drive. It is quite sad when you reach the other side of that capacity. But I do think it's interesting in Rome. I drove in Rome about 3 or 4 years ago. We had a rental car and we decided to go into Rome for the day. And I was braced for, like a very traumatic experience. In reality, the roads were almost completely empty. And we drove for at least an hour before we realised why. It's illegal to drive in Rome, basically, now, unless you have a sort of permit on certain days. Or there's certain, number plate or whatever. And as this dawned on us, we realised why we were able to park outside the Parthenon, not the Parthenon, the Colosseum.
Because you were criminals.
So we just went for it. And, of course, we got a fine. When I got home, it was about an £80 fine. An £80 fine for basically being able to park literally outside the Pantheon.
You did
it was like something out of Roman holiday. It was absolutely worth it.
You did the sort of professional footballer flex. I'll just take the fine and park my Lamborghini.
Like the Lamborghini in Knightsbridge, yeah. Thursday's Express now, and a story that, if true, is great news for our grandchildren and the tiny apartments they'll all inevitably be inhabiting in the future, Nick.
Yes, expert warns humans could start shrinking in size, not because they're 100, but after an eerie discovery in evolution. A paleontologist has warned that humans may begin to adapt to a changing climate by shrinking in size. Oh, what a surprise, it's another climate story. Of course they're shrinking. We're going to eat bugs instead of steak. They're going to be tiny.
That is true.
So what he's arguing is that since mammals with smaller frames are better able to deal with temperature, it's something to do with surface area compared to volume. And this is Professor Steve Brissett. It's happening to Diane immediately as we speak. It's climate change, guys, even in here with the aircon. It's probably the aircon that's doing it. But he
that was my excuse last time.
He compared this... Nice. He compared this... This never normally happens. He compared this transformation to... He's saying it's like the prehistoric horses which shrank in size because temperatures rose 55 million years ago during the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, which is my favourite warming period.
Which must have been... Was that horse-tropic climate change, was it, in those days?
Horse-centric. And basically this guy is trying to sell a book. It's the rise, one might say, it's the rise and reign of the mammals, so that's probably a good book. But he's saying the reasons aren't really understood, but it's because smaller animals have a higher surface area relative to their volume than plump animals.
Oh, no, there is all sorts of reasons why different sizes of animals are good for different climates and stuff. I think that's true, but some of the very big ones live in Africa, don't they? Some of the megafauna, your elephants and so on, live in very hot climates. So there must be some, I don't know, mitigating factors.
Well, when you look at sort of the Nordic people, like the Danes and Norwegians and the Swedish, they can be quite tall, and they're in a sort of a colder climate. But then you sort of get super cold,
they're
like
sort
the
of
Inuit
master
people.
race, aren't they? Those people, I think.
your phrase, not mine.
But no, you're right. There is a certain... I mean, they also say the Neanderthal, which many of us now, it turns out, have a bit of Neanderthal in us, of a Saturday night. But the Neanderthal, if you do your DNA test, you sometimes get 2 or 3%. Did you not know this?
No.
And it correlates. Do you know Tony Law, our colleague on the comedy circuit? Tony Law did a DNA test. He's about 3% Neanderthal, and it correlates with how... He really is, and it's not a bad thing. Neanderthals were very smart. It's a bad publicity.
I wouldn't think it would, Tony.
They have been subject to terrible propaganda over the years, to the idea that they're grunting cavemen. It's very uncertain why they were sort of bred out of existence. It was more like the Great Replacement than anything else. There was this kind of sense that they were essentially absorbed within the larger Homo sapiens thing, and we all have a bit of that in us. But the thing that will come in, if you recognise it, is the low brow ridge. You have a heavy, like a cliff-like forehead, and then your eyes are deep set and way back beneath it. And I don't think I do have it. I just have small eyes. And that is because in the northern climates, the sun spends a lot of its time quite low to the horizon, so you just spend a lot of your time frowning.
Wow.
Apparently. And that's a Neanderthal trait.
Wow.
Yeah, after 10,000 years. Now, we have to remain within Ofcom guidelines for this next one, Diane. I admit I would be reticent to work in an office with a policy like this one.
So this is a story from the Mirror, and a boss gives staff daily masturbation break and sex toys as a special work perk.
A work perk.
Now, we have to just quickly underline what Erica Lust, the boss, does.
Right.
She is a maker of pornographic films.
Heck of a coincidence that that's her name.
Yeah.
I know, it's fabulous, isn't
Nominative determinism.
But, I mean, obviously this works, although to me it would seem like a busman's holiday, really, if you're getting...
You get that in buses as well, do you?
Well,
I thought that was just me.
It depends on how much you pay for the bus, I suppose. This wouldn't really work if you worked at the British Museum, for example, although it's... I mean,
possibly
maybe they should bring it in at number
10,000-year-old
10.
walrus tusk or something, possibly.
That wasn't clear to me, though, in the article. It doesn't say if this is happening on a porn set, which would make sense, or just in some job. Does she have a side hustle?
No, that's what she does. She's
Okay.
a porn director.
OK, so...
There.
OK, I see. But, it wasn't clear. OK, so fair enough. I thought it might mean that this is a... OK, well, that's a bit more normal then, isn't it?
Well, she's saying that she values her employees and she wants to give them time. But my question was, yes, but if you don't want to do it, like you're not in the mood, you still get the break.
Are you kind of tutted at and huffed at until you...
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe you're not doing this.
I suppose you're too good for it, are you? You know,
but she's trying to, like, make out this thing of, oh, it's OK, everybody is cool.
You don't just have to do it in a cubicle or something, do you?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, where would you do it? You'd want to have a nice room.
I agreed to donate sperm once. I thought I'd be a sperm donor. It was about 35 years ago now, and it didn't work out for various reasons. But I did try it once, and I went into this, and it was just like a little... You know, you just had a little bolt on the door. I thought that's not enough.
No, you wanted
what I mean? It wasn't even like, you wanted
nice
it to be like go through a... Do you know what I mean? Like there should have been a foyer or a lobby and then into the actual chamber.
Bit of dinner.
You know, yeah.
Did they make you wear a mask? Oh, no, it was...
No, this was about 1994
Treat you like
or something like that. I wrote an article about it for the...
Are Neanderthals allowed to give sperm? Not you.
It had to be tested. Good question. Following on from our highbrow news selection, who else but the Daily Star? You seem quite enthusiastic about this one, Nick.
Well, that's what they're claiming in the auto cue, yeah. Our producer's stitching me up again. It's, I mean, by the way, I had a very nice girlfriend recently. Someone said the other day on Twitter, there's no way you have a girlfriend. It's just that there's no one in my league, guys. That's what it is. Anyway, Brits can't take world's first sex robot seriously as saucy doll given Glasgow accent. I already tweeted about this. It's a doll with a Glasgow accent. I mean, I don't know if there's settings that you can change it. It's not clear.
Have we got a bit of footage of it? Let's see if we've got a picture of her.
You can connect the AI that you've created in the app to the robot and carry on the conversation with her that way. Once you've got that loaded and you hit chat, she just comes to life.
Good you came back so fast, baby. I'm glad you came back that fast. Wow, baby, 10 minutes without you seems like an eternity.
I misread that.
It's quite a strong dialect, isn't it?
Yeah, no, very strong.
Up, but,
I thought she was saying at first, when I saw it in the article, 10 minutes with you seems like an eternity. I'm like, wow, it's a robot and it's still chipping away at your self-esteem, but it was without you. You can program it to say whatever you want, which is a great thing.
And he's got it to say, I'm glad you came back so fast. Like, she sent him out for, milk and fags or something, and he's come back. It's like...
She sounds like she's covering her tracks a little bit, like he's caught her off guard, and she's like... I don't know what she's up to.
A lot of people were basically saying that she sounds like she's doing the train announcement, like, the next train at platform 1 will be the 12:15. Please mind the gap.
Listen, there might be plenty of people who find that an enormous turn-on, and each to their own. I think that's the whole point of having a sex robot, is that you don't have to be shamed about your...
Yeah.
If that's your worst peccadillo, that you're like a bird from the Glasgow region, I think you're probably fine. Now, let's think of this next one as a palate cleanser. Otters solving puzzles, Diane. This is from The Guardian.
Oh, this is adorable. So scientists use food puzzles to show otters how to learn from each other. So when you've got an otter and you need to release it into the wild, the problem is that sometimes the otter, if you've been feeding it, like apparently they feed otters meatballs and things like that, you know, serve them up a little plate, they do a little bit of Lady and the Tramp and they suck all the pasta. But the problem is when you then release it into the wild, the otter will see like a crab or something for the first time and it will not know if it can eat it, it won't know how to eat it. And what's exciting is that they have trained the otters to, if one otter can pick it up, then that otter will show another otter how to do it.
Oh, they're like the Midwich otters.
The Midwich otters?
From, you know, the John Wyndham, the Midwich cuckoos. You know, if one child cracks the puzzle, then instantly the whole village... Do you not remember that? Because they were all alien spawn.
Oh!
And that was how they realised that they were aliens.
These are not telepathic otters.
It's not, OK.
No, but it's close.
OK.
It's all more mimicry. They're not like...
Right, OK. They're not immediately like bing...
Yeah, they're not all connected on a cerebral level.
Who is it? Rupert Sheldrake has theories that there are animals that can do that. Apparently there was an island where there were some monkeys and they worked out how to crack open a coconut, and suddenly all the monkeys on all the other islands could do it as well.
Sort of like the 4-minute mile.
Yes.
I look, my favourite part is it says otters are able to learn from each other, but still prefer to solve some puzzles on their own. They're like men who won't ask for directions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do this myself.
Well, that basically means that you looked at it and you were like, I could have an otter as my spirit animal.
Exactly.
Otters are really cute. You've seen them lying on their backs, holding hands so they don't float apart, right? 2 otters fall asleep on their backs. It's gorgeous. In an age of consent, Anxiety, at least we can chalk up this one to our list of worries, Nick. This is our last story of the night.
Oh, that's the
age of constant anxiety.
Well, science fears Earth's magnetic poles will flip.
That's right.
And they're
Very
not
quick.
flipping.
You've got 10 seconds.
Oh, well, basically they're not flipping. We thought they were going to flip, and they totes aren't. There you go.
Well, that's one we can cross off the list. Nick, Diane, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for turning out so well presented. I've been Simon Evans. I'll be back here tomorrow night with 2 more well-presented guests, I hope, and some more newspapers. In the meantime, thank you very much for your company. Good night.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online,